Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, and welcome to another awesome episode of Money and Change. My name is Ira Robinson. As always, we're here with Stu Shear. Hello, Stu.
And my name is Stu Shear, and not Ira Robinson. Anyhow, it's a different opening, than what I normally do. Hey, I just thought I'd throw things off today. It's been a wacky day.
I love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Well, hey, I've got a couple of shout outs to do before we start the show. And one is the University of Findlay, and that's findlay.edu. I've had some very nice correspondence with those people up there. Of course, I graduated from there. And I told them, I said, I'll do some shout outs for you for the month of July. And I guess one of them didn't get up on the web. So we're doing that today, and I'm not getting paid for any of the shout outs. I don't get paid for anything on this show. I just provide the research, and hopefully people will take advantage of it. But anyhow, shout out to all the people and Shana Knack up at University of Findlay.
Yep,
also,
we are purposefully not sponsored.
I'm purposefully not sponsored. That's correct. And I want to do it that way. Another shout out is Dave Kobler, and he's Southern Prepper 1, and he has some videos on YouTube, and he's a prepper, and he has allowed me to put some of his videos on Money and Change in the preparedness section. And then also Don Porter, who is known as Sootch, SOOTCH00. And he does some interesting shows. And so I've corresponded with both of them for over a year. Pretty nice guys. And they have some really good videos. And so if you're into preparedness, check them out. If you're into education, hey, check out University of Findlay. Great people, great school, reasonable price. With that, that's all with the shout outs, but we've got a disclaimer for the show before we get on with all of our information we're going to give out today. The information contained in this presented material is from the posting of news agencies on the internet and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the owners of this program. We are not responsible for and expressly disclaim all liability for damages of any kind arising out of use, reference to, or reliance on any information contained in this broadcast. The information provided is not offered as financial advice, financial planning, or for investment purposes, so you want to use this information at your own risk. Now, from the currency chart at xe.com, and that was as of 4/20 today, the euro was at $1.10 to the US dollar. It dropped a penny. The Great Britain pound, went from 132 last week. It dropped 2 cents down to $1.30. The Australian dollar, it was at 75 cents last week. It's up to 76. The Canadian dollar was 76 cents last week. It's down to 75. I can't figure that one out. It's just a reversal. The Swiss franc, hey, it's down to $1.02. Maybe that was due to the big pallet of, I don't know, what was it, 400 million?
Yeah, 400 million.
And Swiss francs that went over to Iran?
Yep.
Maybe, I don't know if that influenced the drop in the price or not. But anyhow, the Japanese yen is still at 9/10 of a cent. The Chinese yuan is still at 15 cents, so it's been holding steady for the last 2 weeks. The Kuwaiti dinar is still at $3.31 to the US dollar, and that's holding steady for the last 2 weeks. The Vietnamese dong, well, the wheelbarrow got just a little bit heavier. It's at 22,306.49 dong to the US dollar. Bitcoin, we've got some stuff on Bitcoin today. Last week it was $625.86. Bitcoin dropped to $585.88. Now that's a pretty good drop. Well, we'll find out what caused some of that drop in just a little bit. Gold. Wow, gold dropped a little bit. It's now down to $1,336.41 an ounce. Silver, It's down to $19.74 from $20.33. And that's per ounce. So, if you have some spare money and you've paid off all your bills and you've got long-term food and water and medications and all that kind of stuff build up and you have some spare money, I don't know, you might want to take a look at silver. Platinum. Hey, platinum only dropped a couple of bucks last week. It's down to $1,145.99 an ounce. And palladium, and that source is in Russia, dropped a little bit. It's down to $696.99 an ounce. And if you go to the currency chart at APMEX, that's the American Precious Metal Exchange, and I'm looking at it right now, gold is down $26, silver's down 72 cents, platinum is down $14, and palladium is down $8.80 from the last time that they traded. So the current gold price is $1,337 according to APMEX. Silver's at $19.75. Platinum's at $1,148. And palladium is at $698.30. I'm not pushing APMEX. There are a lot of reputable companies out there. But I can go to their screen and I can find out what the spot prices are right now as of 5 o'clock. And that's pretty good. If you're going to dabble in precious metals, please, please, please do your research and find a good company. Do not accept paper certificates because that's all you're going to have in the end. And we've talked about that in the past, haven't we?
That we have quite a few times, actually.
Yeah. Oh, and stored in our vault. Gee, do you have your hands on it? No. And you won't get your hands on it because, oh, gee whiz, we had to close the vault. Something happened.
If I am not holding it in my grubby little paws, it does not exist.
Oh, that's right. If you don't have it in your hand, a silver certificate or a gold certificate is not going to do you any good. You could have a closet full of them, and it's not going to do you any good. It's just like all of those IOUs at the Social Security warehouse in Parkersburg, West Virginia. It's not going to do us any good because nobody's ever going to pay it back. And it started with Lyndon Johnson. So if you're going to invest, make sure it's physical gold. You can hold on to it, physical silver, physical rhodium for that matter, copper, whatever, physical. You have to hold it. That means you have to store it. Make sure you have a good, safe place to put it. And sometimes safes don't work. Well, going on, there was an article at Zero Hedge on Bitcoin. And like I said in the beginning, we had some stories on that. Well, there was Bitcoin price crashes after exchange admits security breach, over $60 million stolen. And it said Bitcoin prices are crashing on extremely heavy volume, down over 30% in the last 2 days after Hong Kong-based Bitcoin exchange Bitfinex, Bitfinex, halted all trading after it discovered a security breach. As CryptoCoins News reports, the theft of 119,756 Bitcoins has now been conclusively confirmed, which makes it the largest theft in Bitcoin space since Mt. Gox. Representatives from the exchange told CoinDesk engineers were seeking to uncover issues at press time, though the company had confirmed roughly 120,000 BTC or Bitcoins. More than $60 million have been stolen via social media. Remember that, social media. So in Bitfinex or Finex statement, they said, today we discovered a security breach that requires us to halt all trading on Bitfinex, as well as halt all digital token deposits and withdrawals from Bitfinex. And they said they were investigating the breach. And The theft is being reported to and cooperating with law enforcement. Well, that's a good thing. It's grand theft robbery. And as Bitfinex said, as we account for individualized customer losses, we may need to settle open margin positions, associated financing, and or collateral affected by the breach. Well, Bitfinex said, okay, we're going to post updates, when the appropriate time comes, and we'll put the status up. Well, according to Crypto Coins News, they said that Bitfinex has, however, been experiencing numerous problems over the past few months, leading to an unexpected freezing of trading on at least 2 occasions, both of which caused a crash in Bitcoin's price by almost $100 in each instance. Bitfinex was also fined by CFTC $75,000 for offering illegal off-exchange financed retail commodity transactions and failing to register as a Futures Commission merchant in early June. Well, Bloomberg came out with an article by Yuji Nakamura, and they said hacked Bitcoin exchange users to lose 36%. Said Hong Kong-based Bitfinex said all users will lose 36% of their deposits after the Bitcoin exchange concluded its review of a $71 million hacking attack.
Man, that is a big chunk of change.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think of how many wheelbarrows of Vietnamese dong that would be.
Oh, good Lord.
You'd be buried in dong.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, it went up to $71 million. And to compensate its customers, Bitfinex said users will receive tokens that may later be redeemed or exchanged for shares in its parent company. Following the announcement, Bitcoin climbed to $594. And this was last Sunday in Tokyo. And that came from Coinbase. And the virtual currency dropped 12% to $577.23 the week through Friday, according to Bloomberg. Well, after much thought, analysis, and consultation, they said, we have arrived at the conclusion that losses must be generalized across all accounts and assets. I smell a bail-in here. The exchange wrote on a blog post on Saturday, in place of the loss in each wallet, we are crediting a token labeled BFX to record each customer's discrete losses. Well, efforts to reach Bitfinex were not immediately successful with Bloomberg, and a representative of the exchange, verified by Bloomberg, said that the 36% loss applies to all assets across the site, so everyone. The exchange previously said losses would apply only to users who either had Bitcoin deposited at the exchange or who were in the process of lending US dollars for margin trading. Seems like to me everybody lost 36% across the board. Wouldn't that be a bail-in?
It sounds like one.
Oh, yeah. Some people would say it sounds like a screw job to me.
Yeah, really. No doubt about it.
Well, could it be an internal deal?
It could be. It could be.
I don't know.
It could be that they're channeling things into private funds here and there.
Could be, but something definitely stinks. So that's why the Bitcoin dropped the way that it did over the week, because there was a theft.
This
now
is
they
also
have to find out who was stealing it.
This is also after last week when you brought the information out about Bitcoin not being considered a currency due to the fact that you can't put it underneath your mattress, right?
Right. But you can put it in some type of an exchange. So it seems like to me that would be a currency, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it sure would.
But you just don't have a computer under your bed or under the mattress.
Some people might.
You never know. You never know. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, who knows? And if it's anything like Windows 10, oh God, forget it. I was belaboring before we started the show about my problems with Windows 10 and with headphones and microphones and mices? No,
Meeson?
mouse. The mouse. When you want to click on and drag, it doesn't let you do that in certain instances. It's getting to be a pain, and 8.1 looks a lot better, and sometimes I wish I could revert back to it. Even though they do have a few decent tweaks in Windows 10, it's not the way it's built up to be. Well, anyhow, back to financial news. I mean, that's what I'm here to do, right? Well, Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse were expelled from the largest stock index in Europe, according to Superstation 95. And what do you do when you're one of the biggest indices in Europe and are unable to rise simply because two of your biggest constituents, if not so much in market cap anymore, but certainly in terms of systemic importance, just can't catch a bid? Why, you delete them, of course, even if the two names in question happen to be Europe's two largest banks, Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse. And on Monday, Stocks Limited, that's STOXX Ltd., the operator of Deutsche Börse Group's index business, announced component changes in the Stocks Europe 50 index due to the fast exit rule. All changes became effective with the open of the markets on August 8th. What is the fast exit rule? The rule states that a component is deleted from the Dow Jones Euro Stoxx 50 or Dow Jones Stoxx 50 indexes if it ranks 75 or below on the respective index's monthly selection list for a consecutive period of 2 months. Deleted components for all three indexes will be replaced by the highest ranking non-components on the monthly selection list. Component changes will be announced on the first trading day of the month following the publication of the monthly selection list, implemented on the close of the fifth trading day and effective the next trading day. Well, in other words, someone did not like how Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse were trading and decided to kick them out. So what does that tell you about the financial solvency of those two massive banks? Well, here are the replacements. Vinci, V-I-N-C-I, which is a construction and materials group, and it looks like in France, and ASML Holding, which is in Netherlands, and it's a technology firm. And that's how you boost the performance of the constituent index. It's not immediately clear if there would be any forced selling, according to the report, as a result of these names being kicked out of one of Europe's two most important indices alongside the broader Stocks 600 index. Well, before they made an announcement in the U.S., they wanted to make sure the U.S. markets were closed. And the report said, in a clear effort to avoid market sell-off in the U.S. from these unprecedented expulsions of Europe's two largest banks, it appears the timing of the announcement was in such a way that the information was withheld until after the U.S. markets closed for the day.
They wouldn't do such a thing, would they?
Oh, I mean, if they can rig elections, I mean, or actually certain groups can rig elections and rig the markets with LIBOR. Basically the report says, this act doesn't appear to bode well for stocks when markets begin opening around 8 p.m. Eastern time. And investors may get very spooked tomorrow when European markets open, thus setting the stage for a potential roller coaster ride in U.S. stocks on Tuesday. So we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow, and we'll see how things float from there. Well, Have you ever heard the term evergreen?
I have.
Do you know what it means?
I've heard it in a lot of different contexts. Basically, though, I think in general it just means things that can continuously be active, or like, for example, in marketing, for instance, an evergreen topic is one that is year round. It's never really fading. It's not topical to certain times of the year or anything like that.
Oh boy, if I could send you a cookie over the internet, I mean, chocolate chip or whichever, I I do it. But you're kind of right on that one. And as it turned out in Zero Hedge and Epoch Times, Valentine Schmidt of Epoch, EPOCH Times, put out an article and said China regulator tells banks to evergreen loans of troubled companies.
So to keep them going on and on and on.
That's right. And I looked at that and I thought, evergreen, evergreen. I've never heard of that term before. Well, as I went through the article, I'm like, holy cow, just keep giving them money. I mean, they're going south in the business world. Okay. They're going bankrupt and you're still giving them money. That's a bad loan. Gee, didn't we have that back in 2008 with the housing crisis and bad loans? They were evergreening bad loans then. Well, they're doing it in China. And it said on the surface, China is talking the reform talk, but it's also walking the walk. Nah, there are many examples to demonstrate that it isn't. The most recent one is a directive from the China Banking Regulatory Commission, or the CBRC, to not cut off lending to troubled companies and evergreening bad loans. This is the first report by the Chinese National Business Daily on August 4th. And it said a notice about how the creditor committees at banks and financial institutes should do their jobs. And it tells banks to act together, not randomly stop giving or pulling loans. These institutes should either provide new loans after taking back the old ones or provide a loan extension to fully help companies to solve their problems. Well, it's big news. A couple of weeks ago, they were threatening Liaoning province to cut off all lending to them if they didn't tighten loan standards, said Christopher Balding, and he's a professor of economics at Peking University in Shenzhen. This is a pretty significant turnaround for them to do, and it indicates how significant the problem is. Well, they don't have a plan B, and that's what's happening. And they're just saying, okay, just keep on giving them money. Give them more money. And, you take a look at Goldman Sachs, they were looking at it. And they said, according to Goldman Sachs, Dongbei was the reason Liaoning province came under pressure. And it was Dongbei Steel, or Dongbei Steel, Dongbei. Which missed out at least 5 payments on $6 billion, that's with a B, dollars of debt since the beginning of the year.
Oh, is
but
that
it's
all?
done, yeah, $6 billion, but has done nothing to resolve the problem. This is why creditors wrote an angry letter to the local government to help resolve the issue. Only $6 billion.
No big deal. Pocket change.
I'll tell you, um, man, if I had $6 billion and I gave that to University of Findlay, I could build a bunch of buildings on that campus for that. A bunch. I might even have my name up on a plaque somewhere in a back wall closet.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
This is the sheer closet.
yeah, I know. It's like, when I was up there, we were talking about different things, and I said, about the only award I'll get is back orders of the Wrinkle City Gazette stored in some closet someplace in some outhouse someplace on campus. Well, campus doesn't have an outhouse. It's very nice, very nice place. But $6 billion. Oh my God, The report went on to say overall bankruptcies in China has surged 52.5% in the first quarter of 2016 compared to a year earlier, with 1,208 cases being reported by the Supreme People's Court. Most cases that are resolved involve small companies with few employees, and the
Now
small
that wouldn't
firms
be
are
run by
liquidated.
Judge Judy, though, right?
No, no. They've got a lot of problems over in China.
Well, and you look at the fact that China also owns a lot of our debt. The more that this kind of thing continues, the more likely it's going to be that they're going to call in that debt.
Well, yeah, and it's going to snowball. I mean, the U.S. debt right now, according to the U.S. debt clock, as I'm looking at it, is 19,417,000,000,000, 71,000,000, 100 and oh god, it's up to $180,000 now. It's up to 200,000, going higher. That's $59,898 per citizen. That's $162,311 per taxpayer. My God. I mean, if China calls in the debt, it's all over. We don't have enough money to pay them. We don't have enough money to pay off any of our debt. Why? Because there's been a lot of politicians out there that are just spending, 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 spending.
A lot of fingers in the holes.
And you know something? I would say that they're spending like drunken sailors. But drunken sailors know when to stop because they're out of money.
They'll pass out sometime.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And anymore, probably a lot of sailors don't go out and drink a lot. They don't get paid that much anyhow. But, hey, you look at it, the debt is getting higher. It's time to start thinking survival. I mean, do you have spare food put aside? Do you have some backup water in case the markets go south and the ATMs don't work? You know what, if a person has a fit if they put their card into an ATM machine and the machine doesn't magically spit out money? They have a fit over that. Then they go to the next ATM and it doesn't spit out money either. And you're using your card, you know you have money, but maybe somebody drained the machine dry or they didn't fill it up enough for the weekend. But in a financial crisis, that could happen. So if you don't have some money set aside at home, if you don't have some gold and silver set aside someplace safe, and that's physical gold and silver, you could be, as they say in the trade, SOL, out of luck. So, you have to watch out for that kind of stuff. Now, Sean Bradley in the Anti-Media Organization blog, he came out with an article that said the looming financial crisis nobody is talking about, but should be. Well, we've been talking about something that could happen. Now he's coming out, along with a lot of other people. He said the world has been captivated by a continuous stream of disturbing and shocking headlines. Seemingly every other day, different terrorist attacks, police assassinations, or political stunts ignite the public into an emotional frenzy. But as fear shuts down critical thinking, banks that control Europe's financial system are entering a death spiral. And despite what establishment media narratives push, the most dangerous threat to our way of life isn't a religious ideology or political divide. The real risk is a contagion that is undermining the score of the financial system. And the interconnectedness of the globalized economy we live in, and it contains the problem almost impossible. And concerns used to isolate everything to the failing state of Greece and now the rest of the pigs, which is Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. That's the pigs nation. And if these dominoes continue to fall, according to the report, in Europe, the momentum could carry the destruction of every corner of the globe. Italian banks are the latest on the chopping block, and we talked about it last week. And for years, they have been acknowledged as a weak link in the economic chain, but now they face stress tests that could expose the scope of their internal problems. The oldest bank in the world, and we've talked about that for the last couple of weeks, Monte dei Paschi, Paschi, is at the center of the controversy with an expected shortfall of over 3 billion, that's with a B, euros. Other big names like Unicredit are in equally bad shape. Wells Fargo recently found out that nearly 15% of all loans held by Italian banks could be at risk of default, a staggering figure to attempt to unwind. Further, England's departure from the EU has sparked questions over the future of the euro, and Italy could be the catalyst for an all-out breakdown in confidence. You take a look at it, and you may have a perfect storm of slow or zero Italian economic growth. Low interest rates and politically connected, often corrupt people and lending have combined to create a situation where the Italian financial system is in need of a large rescue, according to Mihir Kapadia, Kapadia of Sun Global Investments. Well, the head of European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, wasted no time in reassuring the markets and downplaying the significance of the hurdles ahead, according to the report. And he's kind of talking about support of a public backstop, kind of a bailout. Well, new regulations passed by the European Union prevent bailout-style action similar to what the U.S. implemented in the 2008 crisis, meaning that the only other option on the table is to use customer accounts to recapitalize, otherwise known as bail-ins. We talked about that. Well, in a future scenario, private savings accounts, retirement funds, and IRAs of average citizens could be stolen by the banks without compensation to cover their bad investments. Gee, bad investments, banks.
Again, I say no way.
Well, I'm not saying don't put money in a bank, but I'm saying it's not paying any interest. And you might want to store it someplace else.
The question has to be, what is the bank doing for you? If the bank is not doing anything for your benefit, it may not be the bank to go into.
Usually credit unions are pretty good.
They're not too bad, yeah.
No, they're not too bad. But then, you said, what are the banks doing for you? That's one way to look at it. But the other way...
What are they doing to you?
That's right. What are they doing?
Which is the bigger question, yes.
It's the big question. Yes. Welcome to XYZ Bank. We'll give you so much for this, and we take out so much for that.
Lubricant is on the right. TV is on the left.
You got it. We have an in-house proctologist ready to take your money. You go for a loan. Okay, bend over. I
actually knew a manager at a bank named Ben Dover.
And
could not have been a more appropriate
Eileen.
Yep.
Oh my God, let's not even go there. Oh, that's a cruel trick to play on somebody. What's your name? Bend over. No, I'm not going to bend over. No, that's my name. What's your sister's name? Eileen Dover. Oh, okay. And her Japanese cousin was Irene?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, anyhow, so much for sick jokes. Oh my God, what do we stoop to next? Maybe the Wrinkle City. Okay. You take a look at bailouts, and then you take a look at, what banks will do to you. Are they charging you for every service? Are they charging you for your ATM card? Like every time you use it, they charge you $2, and out of your what do you want to call it, circuit or whatever. Um, when you go out of the system and use somebody else's, they're going to charge you more.
Yeah, out of network.
Out of network, that's it. See what happens when you go from and to. It's just, you have to watch the banks. We'll do it for you. This is what we do for you. But then you have to look at this is what we do to you. I mean, they can paint the rosiest picture, but if you're one day late on a payment, you know,
It's like the
one
idea of sign on the dotted line, and when you look down into that dotted line, that's not just a dotted line. There's a little fine print that's there.
fine print, you got to pull out a magnifying glass just to read it.
Yep, but it's there, and if you sign it, well, you just agreed to it.
That's right. And you got you got a lot of legalese. You know, like the rule of 78s. I won't even go there. My dad tried to explain that to me one time. And I keep thinking, I'm going to get screwed on this one.
Well, legalese, I mean, the whole fractional lending thing is a big legalese issue, too.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, when you take a look at the financial stuff that's going on in the world, as time passes, you get red flags that pop out. You got Deutsche Bank, in bad trouble. I mean, they're cutting over 100 and I think 88 branches or almost 200 branches, and they're cutting 3,000 jobs. So that's going to be more people out of employment. You've got a big derivatives bubble that could be $75 trillion and in very risky type of devices. That's almost equal to the entire gross domestic product, the GDP of the world. $75 trillion in derivatives in a bubble that could burst. I mean, European Union is in deep doo-doo. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. And you have to watch what's going on. And what gets me is, according to the report, it says a chain of events has been set in motion that will expose the massive fraud world banks and governments have perpetuated on their citizens. Well, all you have to do is go to YouTube on the internet, or you want to go to the Drudge Report, or you want to take a look at Zero Hedge. You find out all kinds of stuff that's going on. And everything's got, it looks like a Ponzi scheme, When banks take in money, for every dollar they take in, they can loan out 9. Well, that seems a little bit bad, because you could have a bunch of bad loans on that $1. You walk in with $100, well, they can loan out $900. Is it a Ponzi scheme? Could very well be. I know some people that work in banks. I'm not bad-mouthing them, because they try to do a very honest and good job for their customers. They're very customer-oriented. But sometimes you get somebody that's a little bit underhanded. And you could end up with a Ponzi scheme, according to the report, and you could have a black swan event. Well, what's a black swan event? A very bad crash. And that's what could happen. Crash. I'll tell you what, instead of a crash, did you know that consumer prices have risen 160% since 2001? 160%.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, according to Superstation 95, on August 1st, in their household, someone measured the burrito index. I've never heard of that before. How much has the cost of a regular burrito at our favorite taco truck gone up? And they said, since we keep detailed records of expenses, a necessity if you're a self-employed freelance writer, I can track the real-world inflation of the burrito index with great accuracy. The cost of a regular burrito from our local taco truck, maybe it's Taco Hell on Wheels, has gone up from 250 in 2001 to $5 in 2010 to 650 in 2016. From 250 to
That
650.
better be one hell of a great taco or
Hey,
burrito. I'm
hey, I'll
telling you,
sell you a
man.
taco. And by the way, it'll fit in your trunk, the whole trunk.
Goodness, 650 for a burrito. That's crazy.
Well, look at the cost. I mean, the wrap is nothing. I mean, you're looking pennies to do that.
Yeah.
The meat filling, yeah, that's up. You're looking at lettuce and tomato,
Right. The
onion,
cheeses,
stuff like that.
everything. Yeah.
So all that goes up.
I wonder if some of that though could be classed with the licensing that goes into running something like that too, though.
It could be in the gasoline costs, and that's all part of it.
Yeah.
Gas prices go up, yeah, you're going to get stuck there.
I tend to go with like the prices of milk. That's a real good barometer as well. Is like what's the cost of your average gallon of milk, like 2% milk or vitamin D milk or whatever it is that you want to drink, and that definitely has gone up. I mean, I know when I was when my kids were really young, for instance, I was paying about $1.50, $1.75 for a gallon of milk. Now it's about $3.20 on average. So, and that's, within a 10-year period of time.
Yeah, and you look at that and you're saying, okay, there's hidden inflation.
Yeah.
Nobody's really talking about it. There's hidden inflation out there in everything that you buy. And if you go around the outside of the outside aisle of the shopping area at Walmart or Kroger's or Publix markets or whatever, and you get that type of food and product, that's the cheaper part. You go into the inner part of the store, and that's where they make their money and all the chips and beer and everything else.
Right.
But this guy's saying, "Hey, it's a burrito index, man. It's a 160% increase." And he said, if the burrito index had tracked official inflation, the burrito at our truck should cost $3.38, only up 35% from 2001. He said, comparing that to today's actual cost of $6.50, almost double what it should cost according to official inflation calculations. And since 2001, the real world burrito index is 4.5 times greater than the official rate of inflation. And it's not a trivial difference. And between 2010 and now, the burrito index has logged a 30% increase, more than triple the officially registered 10% drop in purchasing power over the same time. And what's the takeaway? He says our money is losing its purchasing power much faster than the government would like us to believe. Well, if you compare burritos to burritos, what do you get? Well, according to official statistics, inflation has reduced the purchasing power of the dollar by a mere 6% since 2011, barely 1% a year. We've suddenly seen our purchasing power decline by 27% in the 12 years since 2004, an average rate of 2.25% per year. Well, the cost of a regular taco was $1.25 in 2010. By official standards, it should cost a dime more. Whoops, it's now $2 each, a 60% increase, 6 times the official rate. Well, let's compare that to a Vietnamese style sandwich. Banh mi. Have you ever tried, or banh mi?
I've never
Have
tried
you,
that one. No.
I haven't. I've had some Vietnamese food before, and it was very tasty, but I had to have 7 glasses, tall glasses of iced tea to cut the heat. And I had a steak style salad down in Houston, Texas one time. And I thought, okay, this doesn't have any heat in it. It's got steak and it's got lettuce and stuff. Woo! Um, it tasted good, but I'll tell you, the heat was just incredible. And we were in an air conditioned restaurant. I mean, I was sweating. But I'll tell you the Vietnamese style sandwich, the banh mi, they said was a favorite Chinatown deli, and it went from $1.50 in 2001 to $2 in 2004 and $3.50 in 2016. And that 150 increase since 2004 is a 75% jump. 75%. So let's play devil's advocate, yeah, and suggest that these large increases are limited due to food purchased away from home. To use the official jargon for meals purchased at fast food joints, delis, cafes, microbreweries, and restaurants. Well, how about public university tuition? That's not something you buy every week like a burrito. Getting out a calculator, you find out the cost for 4 years of tuition and fees at a public university will set you back about 8,600 burritos. And you throw in books. And you assume the student lives at home, so there's no dorm room or food expenses. Well, now you're up to 10,000 burritos or $65,000 for the year or for the 4 years at a public university. Well, I remember way back when I went to Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. Excellent school. When I went there, it was $98 a semester hour. I finished my master's degree and I went back for additional schooling. And I went to pay my fees. They said, well, that'll be $215 a semester hour. Oh, just because you beat Ohio State in basketball doesn't give you the right to raise the rates. They said, no, it's $215 a semester hour, pay up. At Xavier, you could pay by the week, you could pay by the month, you could pay by the semester, but you better be paid up or you're not getting your grades. They didn't take firstborn child. I think some people tried. Finley's a lot less expensive than that. University of California at Davis, in 2004, the in-state tuition was $5,684. In 2015, the state tuition was $13,951. That's an increase of 145%. Okay? So we've got a situation out there where prices have gone up and people have to start paying attention. Watch where your costs are. Watch what you're buying. I mean, check the ingredients. Are you getting meat? What kind of meat are you getting? Are you getting hamburger? Or are you getting hamburger mixed with horse meat? Or aardvark? Or weasel? And as Gary Burbank used to say in his radio show, weasel, the other white meat. So you have to check to see what you have as far as food quality, and price. And yeah, prices have gone up. And they're going to continue to go up and up and up. And eventually the bubble's going to burst. And then what do you have at home? Do you have enough food for a month if there's a big calamity? Do you have food for 6 months? Do you have food for a year? Do you have enough water for everybody in your household? Do you have a way to protect your food and water? Do you have enough medications? Well, at moneyandchange.weebly.com, not only do we talk about money, not only do we talk about national debt and currency information, but we talk about being prepared too. And there's videos by Such, by Southern Prepper, and a bunch of others that will tell you different things. There are preparedness articles. Check it out, moneyandchange.weebly.com. It may save your keister in an emergency, because if you're not prepared, you could be one of those that are going to be standing out in the street wondering where your next meal's going to be, because the government's not going to save you. There are too many of us for them to save.
By far.
That's right. So you have to learn to prepare. And I've been talking about this for 3.5 years. So come on, people, let's get with the program. Well, there was an article at Zero Hedge, and we're talking about preparing for a world without cash. And it was at a Wall Street Journal in an op-ed authored by two NYU professors, Max Raskin and David Yermak, Yermack, on the subject of digitalization of currency. Plastic card, load it with money, and that's the way you do it. Well, if you take a look at different things, given the fact that the trust in the Fed is at the level of Clinton, why is there any discussion regarding providing them with additional powers? Look at the deplorable track record of these clueless bureaucrats. And Raskin and Yermak began, the Federal Reserve has done almost nothing to study how a digital currency might look and might work. What would a government-backed digital currency look like? A country's central bank would need to become a deposit-taking institution to hold accounts on behalf of citizens and businesses. All of their debts would be tracked on the central bank's blockchain, a digital ledger resistant to tampering. The central bank would pay interest electronically by adjusting the balances of depositor credits, while the current system of fiscal notes and bills would be continued in parallel. It would likely wind down over time. Well, the report was saying that implementation wouldn't be easy. Digital currencies, decentralized ledgers, and the future of central banking was a topic in a new paper prepared. There are advantages, but there are also some disadvantages. You know, it's all numbers, zeros and ones in computers, if you know anything about computers. It's all numbers. And you know what happens. If there's a crash, as it happened with Mt. Gox and later on with Bitfinex, you're out of your money. That's where cash comes in. Would the system work in the U.S.? Well, it's already being in the EBT cards, the welfare cards. They're already using it. And you know what happens if people don't get their EBT card credits? They go on a rampage in a store.
Things get bad quick.
What happened a couple weeks ago when that lady went nuts? Her card wasn't any good. And she's in I think it was a 7-Eleven store or some type of convenience store. She started throwing things. She started pushing over shelving because she couldn't get any food. Riots happen. And when they do, you're out of luck. You take a look at Detroit. You go up to Detroit and drive around. What do you see? It's not vibrant like it used to be. It's pretty well run down. A lot of crime. What happens if you go to Flint, Michigan? Flint had bad water. Now the trash is piling up. Go figure. Finances in Flint aren't any good either. There was an article that came out from Economy and Markets by Rodney Johnson, and I found this on the Business Insider. Puerto Rico is the next Detroit. Well, as you know, we talked about defaulting on loans. Well, that's what happened with Puerto Rico. And according to his report, he said the housing bust was awful, particularly in Florida and other sand states as the economy slowed. Consumers lost jobs, and when they couldn't pay their mortgages, they then lost their homes. Even though that wrenching period happened almost a decade ago, it'll live in our memories for years to come. Well, we're about to see the same thing again, but this time on a much larger scale. And the sucker on the other end of the line won't be a bank or faceless mortgage company. It'll be individual investors. And once again, they'll have government help to blame. Haven't I said, gee, I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. When you hear that statement, you run like hell in the opposite direction. Well, during the housing disaster, the government took a series of steps to ease the pain, including mortgage modification and so forth. Struggling homeowners able to modify their loans and stay in their homes were thrilled. But those who wanted out of the trap went the short sale route and were also glad for a way forward. And according to the report, it says, but another homeowner category rose to prominence, and those were looking to accrue ill-gotten gains. Some people just simply stopped paying their mortgages, daring lenders to foreclose. At one point, foreclosure courts in Florida were running 600 days behind in foreclosures. Well, take a look at Puerto Rico. It's out of money. The Commonwealth begged Washington for debt relief since the territorial laws of the U.S. and the island's own constitution don't allow for paying creditors less than what they are owed. The day before Puerto Rico owed $2 billion in principal and interest, Congress and the president approved a restructuring plan called Promesa. Maybe that's promise in Spanish. Well, that allows the Commonwealth to pay back less than it owes as long as it agrees to a financial oversight board and follows certain rules. Now, that move was hailed as a great step forward for the struggling nation, and it showed that the federal government wasn't deaf to the fiscal woes of Puerto Ricans. But the bondholders were furious, and the Puerto Rican Constitution demands that bond principal and interest be paid first. Well, before the ink was dry on Promesa, Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla, Padilla, unveiled his budget for fiscal year 2017, which runs from this past July 1 through June 30th. The document is an example of putting politics ahead of contracts, and the governor approved the payment of half the debt service due in July, but not the most senior secured bonds, and instead he authorized payment of junior bonds issued for the convention center and local roads that are more widely held by Puerto Ricans. Beyond that, he authorized almost no debt service whatsoever for the next year. Investors went crazy when the governor presented the budget, and they eventually filed a lawsuit to stop the Puerto Rican government from sucking all the money out of the system before any restructuring could happen. And Puerto Rican supporters say investor fears aren't justified. If the oversight board deems the payments unnecessary, they can just claw them back. Really? How do you claw back money paid out as a principal and interest on junior bonds? How do you unwind payments by the office of the First Lady for daily expenses? Another, what was it, Ramila Marcos? I forget her first name, that had all those shoes over in the
Imelda.
Philippines.
Imelda, yeah.
Imelda, okay, with all those shoes.
Thousands and thousands.
Thousands and thousands. She had a foot fetish. That's the way it goes. Well, take an example of things to come. When states are in dire financial straits like Illinois, Kentucky, and Connecticut start scraping the bottom of their financial barrels, they'll look for someone to sacrifice, and they'll eventually identify bondholders claiming they couldn't cut expenses in their own state. And eventually the federal government will devise a plan for restructuring debt. Well, then how do they get in debt to begin with? That's what bugs me. There's an article out on the Automatic Earth blog by Raul Ilargi Meyer, Meijer, and it talked about the end of the IMF credibility, or why Christine Lagarde should be fired, but won't be. Please take a look at Zero Hedge. You'll find that entire article, and it talks about the lawsuit that she's under for something in France. And it was quite interesting to see what's happening with that. But hey, it's out there, Zero Hedge. Take a look at it. Well, here's something that was interesting. The states that really did something decent. Here's an article that was by Nathan Mateer and Rachel Sheffield. And it said that these states added work requirements for food stamp recipients. And here's how it's working out. Several states have grappled with welfare reform. A few states have incorporated work requirements that have seeing encouraging outcomes that could provide a blueprint for greater welfare reform. Well, they found out the number of food stamp recipients decreased by 773,134. This brings the food stamp enrollment down to the 2011 levels and presents the biggest drop in participation since 2005. Although food stamp participation grew wildly during the recession, we're still in it. It was on an upward climb before then, and policies were put into place that made it easier for people to get on the program and stay there. Then, during the recession, the food stamp work requirement for able-bodied adults without dependents was suspended as part of Obama's 2009 stimulus package. Well, some states went and put that back on. And Maine was one of the most proactive states in restating the work requirements for food, and it saw its caseload of able-bodied adults without dependents decrease by 80% just within the few months of reestablishing the work requirement. Kansas has experienced similar results, seeing its caseload decline by 75%. Indiana has experienced similar outcomes. Indiana reinstated work requirements in July of 2015. 6 months after reinstating the requirements, the state's caseload of able-bodied adults without dependents decreased by 68%. If you're going to get something free, there ought to be conditions that you have to pay for it. Nothing is ever free.
Yep, I don't mind the idea of doing something along those lines, really.
I don't either. And I think that, as I drive through my own town, I see weeds growing up along the curbs. I see fire hydrants that are now being painted. And I see the stripes that are supposed to give you 10 feet on either side of a fire hydrant as a no parking zone. They're just weathered away. Hopefully they get painted. I see lots where weeds are growing up. Nobody's taking care of it. And people don't care. And that's the vast majority of the town. Now, out where I live, we're a little bit more, we have a little bit more pride, I'll put it that way. We make sure that our weeds are controlled. We make sure that we mow our lawns. We make sure that things are done. Are we rich people? No. But we're clean people. We have a sense of pride. And people really need to get that pride back. And people can be cleaning streets. They could be painting. They could be doing something for 20 hours a week. Stuffing envelopes. Putting stamps on. Putting labels on. But they ought to be able to do something. And if they absolutely cannot work, well, then the system should take care of it. But if they can work, then they should work at least 20 hours a week to be able to pay back for the free things that they get. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I think you do the same thing.
Yep, indeed. We are pretty much out of time, though, unfortunately, just to let you know.
Unfortunately, well, I'll tell you what. Go to moneyandchange.weebly.com, check it out, and there's only one last thing. Little thing for humor here as we leave for the day. As soon as it comes up, I even had it up, and it was a good one. And son of a gun, it was a golf joke. Sid and Barney head out for a quick round of golf. Since they are short on time, they decide to play only 9 holes. Sid says to Barney, let's say we make the time worth a while, and at least for one of us, and spot $5 on the lowest score for the day, and Barney agrees. After the 8th hole, Barney is ahead by 1 stroke and cuts his ball into the rough on the 9th. Help me find my ball. You look over there, he says to Sid. And after 5 minutes, neither has had any luck. And since the lost ball carries a 4-point penalty, Barney pulls the ball from his pocket and tosses it to the ground. I found my ball. He said that triumphantly. And Sid looks at him and says, after all the years we've been playing golf and we've been friends. You cheat on me on golf for a measly $5. What do you mean cheat? I found my ball sitting right here. And the other guy says, and a liar too, Sid says with amazement. I'll have you know I've been standing on your ball for the last 5 minutes. So much for liars and cheats in Wrinkle City.
Indeed.
And with that, donate to the show to keep everything on the air. I donate my time and research to try to help other people out. And with that, that's all we have this week, and hopefully we get better news next week.
Indeed. Thank you, Stu, for all that you do. Everybody out there, we will talk to you again next week. Keep safe out there and have fun.